I think the most valuable thing I've gained from SVP is a sense of possibility or even a sense of audacity. I mean, I believe that every single person, a part of their soul, needs to make an impact in the world. And what I love about business is that there's such rigor and energy and achievement in that structure. And so when you put those things together, business and social impact together can really make a bigger difference in the community.
I was approached to join SVP by someone who was recruiting new members, and I listened to his pitch and I said, well, I already write checks to causes I care about, so why do I need to join SVP? And he just looked at me and he said, leverage. And the light bulb went off. I thought, of course, collectively, we can do so much more than I or anyone is able to do on their own.
I get really excited about what SVP is doing to kind of layer the resources that creates a deeper impact in the organizations. And ultimately, we believed that doing that with organizations alone was not enough.
It just was logical. It made sense to me that if we put all of our efforts behind one intractable goal, suddenly we could make a bigger difference than we'd been making before. Our former board chair used to say that SVP was failing one success at a time.
When the whole is not moving the needle for kids in the community, then you can't say that ultimately your investments are successful. We want to affect change for kids. We want to change the status quo so that kids that are vulnerable or at risk actually get what they need to be successful.
When you can change the trajectory of a kid's life in kindergarten, their success just builds upon itself over time, and studies show reduced rates of incarceration, increased wage earning, all the metrics that we as society value and want to see in our community get better and better.
I think SVP is hard to explain because we're the partner that's essential that you kind of forget about. I sometimes say, what's the peanut butter without the jelly? What's the macaroni without the cheese? We're like the cheese and the jelly. We're helping an organization that's doing good work now establish a foundation for much longer term success and growth, but also like raising their vision to a level that perhaps they hadn't dreamt of, but also a level that will ultimately move the needle in the communities.
SVP's focus on getting kids ready for kindergarten, on universal preschool, has really galvanized the community here and brought together stakeholders that weren't really talking to each other before. The early learning world is pretty siloed. There are a lot of different sectors that don't come together. And SVP was able to really bring those folks all around the table to look at what needs to happen in our community to really make sure kids have the best chance possible. And over the past 5 or 6 years of really seeing that focus take hold and take root, not only have they built capacity in organizations like ours that are critical for communities of color, they've also brought other stakeholders to the table and moved this conversation about kindergarten readiness and early childhood education into the forefront.
And that has turned into a task force that brings together the grass tops and some of the government folks, as well as the grassroots people, and then healthcare and business and school districts and parents who are all in there saying, we're not going to go figure out if this is the right thing to do. We're going to figure out how and how soon we can make this happen.
We still do the fundamental capacity building work that we've always done, but the other thing is we're investing in some things that we weren't really touching before, like policy advocacy work. We're not taking a policy or advocacy role. We're supporting our investees in stepping up their policy advocacy work, because that's really critical in order to make long-term change.
You don't achieve anything unless you start to imagine first. And then over time, like we continue doing those investments, but inspiring people to join us was an important part of the work. And so we've tripled our partnership over these years. But more importantly than that, over the course of the last 6 years of our goal focus, we've given about $1 million to that group of nonprofits. But we've been able to bring along another $8.5 million from government sources, from other foundations, from other people who say, hey, I totally believe in what you're doing. Or we go out and say like, hey, you need to invest in this group because we're trying to achieve this larger goal. And it makes a difference when it's not just about individual organizations competing, but it's about collectively we're trying to achieve something and your investment makes a bigger difference.
What excites me about the future with SVP is that the sky is the limit. In the last 3 years, our organization has more than doubled. We're now in 12 schools in 2 counties. And based on that successful track record of expansion and increased pace of expansion, we worked with SVP to develop a business plan to take the program statewide. And what excites me is that we can dream and dream and dream, and SVP will jump into that dream with us and help us make it a reality.
I think one of the things that's exciting about investing in one focused goal is that we discovered who we really are. We discovered more of who we really are about people who are audacious and deeply committed. We're figuring out not just how do we help one organization, but how do we change the course of history for kids and families in our community. And I think it's caused us to sort of rise to that occasion and become more audacious, more impactful. And I think it's helped to better define that we cause long-term change.